Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that's always super relevant, super requested, and always a blast to talk about: building a killer gaming PC on a budget. Specifically, we're shooting for the best possible build you can get in 2025 if you've got a cool $1,000 ready to go. Now, a grand might not sound like a lot in the crazy world of PC hardware, but trust me, we can still put together something seriously capable. We're gonna break down each component, talk performance, value, and hopefully, by the end of this, you'll be ready to start picking out parts for your own beast of a machine. Let's get started. Alright, first up, the heart of any gaming rig, the CPU. Now we're working with a tight budget here, so we gotta be smart. No point splurging on a top-of-the-line chip when we gotta factor in the GPU, RAM, all that good stuff, right? In 2025, for around the $250 mark, you're looking at some pretty sweet options from both Intel and AMD. Now, I know, picking between these two can be like choosing between... well, you get the idea. Both sides have their strengths. For this build though, I'm leaning towards AMD, specifically something like a hypothetical Ryzen 7 7700 XT, or whatever its successor might be called by then. Why? Well, AMD's been killing it in the value department, offering more cores and threads, which is becoming increasingly important, even for gaming. Plus, their platform tends to have better upgrade paths, so you can always swap out the CPU down the line if you need even more power. Now don't get me wrong, Intel's not out of the game. They've got some great CPUs too, but for raw bang for your buck, AMD's just been tough to beat lately. And remember, we're trying to make every dollar count here. A solid mid-range CPU like the one I mentioned should handle pretty much any game you throw at it, even with the higher demands of 2025 titles. You might have to dial back some settings on the most demanding AAA games, but hey, that's the name of the game when you're building on a budget, right? The key here is to find that sweet spot between performance and price. You don't want to bottleneck your system with a weak CPU, but you also don't want to blow your entire budget on it either. Do your research, compare benchmarks, and see what fits your needs and your wallet the best. Alright, now for the part you've all been waiting for, the GPU. This is where your gaming experience really comes to life, and where we tend to see the biggest performance differences. The good news is, even with a $1,000 budget, we can still get our hands on some seriously capable graphics cards in 2025. Now, GPU prices can fluctuate like crazy, but for this build, let's aim for something in the $400 to $450 range. That should get us a card that can handle 1440p gaming at high settings. Maybe even touch some ray tracing if we're lucky. Again, we'll be looking at both NVIDIA and AMD, because competition breeds innovation, right? By 2025, who knows what kind of crazy tech they'll come up with. Maybe we'll be talking about RTX 5000 series or RX 8000 series by then. Exciting times, people. What I'm looking for in this price range is a card with at least 8 GB of VRAM, preferably 12 GB because games are only getting more demanding. We also want something with decent clock speeds and a good amount of CUDA cores or stream processors, depending on whether we go green or red. Don't get caught up in the hype train and just buy the most expensive card you can afford. Look at benchmarks, read reviews, and see what cards offer the best performance for your specific needs. Do you prioritize high refresh rates? Do you need ray tracing? These are all things to consider when making your decision. Remember, the GPU is a marathon runner, not a sprinter. We want something that can handle the latest games for years to come, so choose wisely, my friends. Alright, let's talk motherboards, the unsung heroes of our PC builds. They might not be as flashy as the CPU or GPU, but they're absolutely essential for everything to work together harmoniously. Now, the motherboard you choose will depend on the CPU you went with. If you followed my advice and went with an AMD Ryzen processor, you'll need an AM5 motherboard, or whatever the latest and greatest socket is by 2025. For Intel, it might be something like LGA 1851, who knows. The point is, make sure they're compatible. For a $1,000 build, we don't need to go crazy with a super high-end motherboard. Something in the $150 to $200 range should be more than enough. Look for a board with good build quality, a decent feature set, and importantly, good VRMs. That last one is crucial for ensuring your CPU gets clean and stable power delivery, especially if you plan on doing any overclocking. Don't get too bogged down in all the technical jargon. Just make sure the motherboard has all the essential ports and slots you need, like enough USB ports, an M.2 slot for your NVMe SSD, and maybe even some fancy RGB headers if you're into that sort of thing. Remember, the motherboard is the backbone of your system, so choose wisely, and make sure it has everything you need to support your components and your gaming habits. Alright, let's talk RAM, the stuff that keeps your PC from feeling like it's stuck in molasses. Now, in 2025, 16 gigabytes of RAM is going to be the bare minimum for a gaming PC. Trust me, you do not want to be caught with less than that. But ideally, we want to shoot for 32 gigabytes if we can swing it. Why so much RAM, you ask? Well, games are getting bigger and more demanding, and having more RAM allows your system to store more game data for faster access, which translates to smoother gameplay and fewer frustrating stutters. When it comes to speed, we want to aim for at least DDR5 6000. DDR5 is the latest and greatest RAM technology, and it offers significant performance improvements over DDR4. Plus, by 2025, DDR5 prices should be much more reasonable. Now, you might be tempted to save a few bucks and go with slower RAM, but trust me, it's not worth it. RAM is relatively inexpensive compared to other components, and the performance difference is noticeable. So, do yourself a favor and get the fastest RAM you can afford. Your gaming experience will thank you for it. Alright, let's talk about storage. In 2025, there's simply no excuse for a slow and sluggish PC. We want our games to load lightning fast, and that means going with an NVMe SSD. Now, SSD prices have been dropping like crazy lately, which is fantastic news for us budget builders. For this build, I'd recommend getting a 1TB NVMe SSD as your primary drive. That should be enough space for your operating system, essential programs, and a good chunk of your favorite games. Look for a drive with good read and write speeds, something with at least 3000 megabytes per second for both. You'd be surprised how much of a difference a fast SSD makes in overall system responsiveness. Now, if you're someone with a massive game library or you work with large files, you might want to consider adding a secondary storage drive. A 2TB or 4TB hard disk drive will give you plenty of space for all your files without breaking the bank. Remember, storage is like your PC's closet. Get something big enough to hold all your stuff without having to constantly clean it out. And there you have it, the best custom gaming PC build for $1,000 in 2025. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more tech tips and reviews.